call the meeting to order at 5:30. All right, so are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, there's
Okay.
one.
Yeah,
I would like to take Tom Goddard and move him as the first item.
For local
for
emergency?
the,
Yes, local emergency
Emergency ops,
operations
yeah.
plan,
okay,
just in case he gets called out on an emergency.
sounds good. All right, other than that adjustment, next is approval of the minutes of March 28th.
All right, I'll move to approve the minutes, March 28th, 2018.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 28th as presented. If there is no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Joe. Good minutes, clear, concise. All right. Public comment on items not on the agenda. Is that? Anybody have a comment on items not on the agenda? All right, then we will move on to select board items, and I guess that means we're starting with you, Tom.
Good. It's that time of year again where we need to file with the Wyndham Regional Commission and the state of Vermont our local emergency operations plan. So we've done this every year for the last number of years. Again, we just need to file it, get it signed, approved, signed, and filed again this year. So there's been a little bit of a change in that the name of the document has changed, and these changes come directly from the state. So it's nothing that we dreamt up ourselves or anything. So instead of what it used to be called the basic emergency operations plan, and in Putney we used to have a separate standalone plan that was much broader. So for this plan, the name has changed to local emergency operations plan, and within all these changes, we're going to actually incorporate that other standalone plan into this one. So now we only have one plan instead of two. So the layout has changed dramatically from what you've seen in the past. The information is all obviously the same, with the exception of us, obviously, names of folks that have changed and their contact information, so on and so forth. But overall, the information is all going to be the same. And Karen, you have the signature form.
I do have a signature.
That signature form, even though we developed it, all the verbiage in the layout of that document that's there is what's required by the state.
And is that your
No,
signature?
no,
or
the
my
select board chair
signature?
has to sign, and then Karen. Remember, Josh, several years ago, we went through with a change where whoever was signing that for the town had to meet certain levels of training.
Yeah,
And typically it's been the town manager,
yeah.
and it's the same this year.
So I have taken the ICS, but it was a long time ago.
I have it.
You
I
have
have
it
it,
also?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So it's my signature, or
No,
we,
it's
or we want to link? Both, okay, sounds good.
Karen signs the bottom, and you sign the line above.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
And then again, the plan will be submitted as soon as everything's signed. I'll make the copies necessary. They'll be forwarded to the Wyndham Regional Commission, and then they in turn will take all the plans for the region, individual plans, and provide them to the state.
Yeah, I had gotten an email from them not too long ago saying we needed to update this, so. All right. Test sign. So, if somebody would like to move to adopt the local emergency operations plan as presented.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Are
Let's-
is all of this information on Oh, the municipalities and EOCs, all the contact information is missing.
Yeah, that will be all filled in.
Okay,
Yeah,
I figured,
that'll be all completed. In reality, over the next probably 6 to 8 months, there'll be a lot more actually added to this that will then be, that we'll use now, and we would anyway. And then that'll all be included in the adoption next year.
As you modify.
Yep. Yep.
So it's been moved?
Yep.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the local emergency operations plan as presented. And it's been noted that any missing information will be added. If there is, are there any questions, any discussion? If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
thank you, that's a lot of work.
That's a big plan.
And so I'm signing and printing, is that, or do you have one there? There you go.
Thank you, Josh.
Tom, is this ever practiced on like a full scale with,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
it's good to know, that's reassuring. Well, thank you.
It's very thorough.
It is very thorough.
Yes.
I was really impressed when I read it.
Yeah.
Sort of fine tuned.
Yeah, no, it's really
Yes.
well done.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. So
All
in
right.
practice, is that something that you like?
I haven't, I mean, I used to do that stuff, but I haven't participated in a long time. You know, I mean, our role in that primarily, if it boils right down to it, is to basically allow for expenditure of town funding as well as opening up town facilities, you know, verifying that the highway department can be used as necessary, so on and so forth. So ours is pretty much sort of a paperwork aspect of it. But, you know, never having had to actually sort of exactly implement it on a major scale, you know, our role in that, I'm sure, would sort of unfold as time, when, you know, if you think of something like Irene, you know,
Right.
select board members became very important for a whole bunch of different reasons, but.
Everyone does.
But exactly, it sort of
Yeah. All hands
unfolds as
on
it,
deck.
exactly, as it goes. All right. So, next item on the agenda would be the proposed merger between Putney Cares and Putney Family Services. So, somebody is here to present
Actually,
about that.
there are 3 of us.
Yes.
What would be, and should we just sit here and let you know then? I'm Maggie Cassidy. I'm the secretary of the board of Putney Family Services.
Tiffin Mabry, President of Putney Cares.
And Dylan Devlin, Vice President of Putney Family Services.
And the 2 organizations have existed side by side for many years. And we share a space up in the Putney Cares barn. The 2 directors actually have their offices right next door and communicate well. And about 6 months ago, the 2 representatives from the 2 boards began to talk about the possibility of merging the 2 organizations to become something larger. Putney Cares has historically been very much focused on the needs of seniors. Putney Family Services very much focused on children and families. And it seemed to us, particularly with blended families and grandparents taking care of babies and kids, that it made sense to look at the possibility for the 2 organizations to become one. And once we began to do that, we began to see all kinds of efficiencies and possibilities for serving the community in a wide way, from infancy to elder age. And to be the place to come for referrals for other services, for the programming that Putney Cares has traditionally done, mostly for seniors, but that could also broaden out to be for people of other ages. We come to you because the two organizations have each had an allocation from the town in the town budget. And we would like to put on your screen that we hope that if and when we merge, we expect to, it's not completely conclusively decided yet, but if we merge this year, at the next consideration of the budget, we hope that the board would say, great, you are doing 2 organizations' work plus, and the allocation formula, if there's a formula, could be adjusted so that the allocation would not be halved when the 2 organizations merged. And we wanted also to come to the select board as a courtesy to you, and this is the first public acknowledgement that the 2 organizations are seriously considering this merger. We think it'll be better for the organizations and much better for the town.
Sounds wise. I'm guessing as far as the funding component is concerned, that really would, I mean, we can certainly consider that here and propose it as we, depending on your timing and how you, I guess I would encourage you when you're thinking about that, when you are looking for social service allocation, to make clear sort of how those 2 roles still continue and the difference between them. But really, that would be a question for the voters. I'm guessing you would get that support, at least in the short term. Perhaps over the longer term, as they became more and more blended, that might be a little trickier to explain to people why it works that way, but it might not. I don't know. But I think it would, we would probably want to, the other possibility is we could look again at, as you well know, there's an allocation for in-town and organizations that are directly beneficial to Putney and Putney only, and whether there's some separation of levels of that contribution depending on budgets or services provided, or somehow, I'm not sure what we have to think about in that. But if we continued it as 2 separate allocations, we just have to think through the logistics of that. So again, as you go forward, I would just encourage you to think through the logistics of that as well, so it can be presented in a way that would make sense, and probably most importantly, easily explained to the town, at town meeting, other than sort of the obvious, but why they might be kept as 2 things in an allocation. Sounds like a great idea overall to me.
Can you speak to the statement you said, voting on?
Well, as it is now, the social service budget is contained within the general fund budget. It's created by providing a certain percentage of the budget, which I think is 2.46% or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is. But there are 3 tiers as it is now. One for organizations that provide services to Putney only.
Right.
Next to a certain level of services that are provided to Putney and other Windham County residents. And then there's a 3rd tier that's really Windham County, but Putney benefits it sort of a little less directly. So, and that's all, that's all sort of a formulaic way of approaching it. So, we just have to be able to justify that, and or you would have to be able to justify that to us to keep it as 2 separate allocations, or why we would want to recommend it as one. And again, that it seems obvious why that would be, but again, over time and as it's something you guys would just want to have clearly laid out so it could be more easily explained to people who are making the decision.
Wouldn't that, though, if they merge, it'd be 1 less in that tier?
Yes.
So there'd be more money to split between, unless someone else applied to.
That's true, except it's not a direct allocation. If that happens, if there's 1 less in Category A, Category A's monetary
Oh,
amount does
certain
not remain the
percentage.
same, it filters through the whole thing. So it would dilute, it would increase it for everybody, which would, yes, you're right. I mean, it would definitely increase the amount that category A got, but it would also increase C and B, so it would, there'd
Right.
sort of be trickle down on that.
That would be our concern, is that it would only be considered as under one
Right.
umbrella.
Right.
Whereas we are taking two organizations that exist off of the money that you provide for us, the town provides for the two organizations. And if it is cut in half, or then we can only do as half as
Right.
much.
Right.
So we want to be able to present the organization in a manner that indicates that we are not only doing what Putney Cares does for the people of Putney, but what Putney Family Services does for the Putney people, as well as other programs that we are wanting to provide. The biggest thing now is we need a nurse, and we would also like to have some kind of organization where a program where the grandmothers, which as I am one, am finding that there are a larger number of grandmothers taking care of grandchildren. So this is our concern, is that we would not be able to support our organizations without the support of the town.
And we hope to present this to other donors as well. I mean, we're
Yeah.
confident that this makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes economic sense. It makes kind of organizational sense, and it allows us already to do a little bit more. But it would be hard if the town allocation were actually cut for this combined.
We would have to revisit, and you might want to get a copy of the social service contribution policy that we currently have, because it's pretty clearly laid out, and that is a policy. You know, whether we would want to look, again, whether, you know, maybe we go from having 3 groups to 4 groups, one that provides, you know, medical services in addition to, but, you know, if you're, as it is right now, the Group A ones are Putney Community Center, Putney Cares, Putney Family Services, Putney Food Shelf. You know, it seems obvious right now, and to all of us sitting here, why you would need and deserve twice the funding.
Right.
But again, as time goes by, you know, somebody down the road might be saying, well, wait a minute, why are they more important than the food shelf or the community center? And there may be obvious reasons, there may not. But again, I think that's worth, and I'm assuming you have legal counsel involved in this process. It might be worth having your counsel just look at the town policy and see whether there's any recommendations that could be made to either adopt the policy or a way that it can be somehow separated in your statement so that it makes sense. I'm not sure, but we'd have to,
Where would we get a copy of the town policy?
we can provide you with
Yeah,
that.
I can get you a copy,
Okay.
okay?
And this is
Stop
exactly
in.
why we're here now.
Yeah.
To let you know ahead of time what we're planning, and so that if we did come to you to ask for some change in the policy, for example, it wouldn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
you know, time changes things that make perfect sense. So,
Right.
however, that can be clear whether it's a change in policy or in the way you structure the organization, so that, you know, it's a single organization that provides 2 different services or something. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But council might be able to help you figure that out. And you had a question?
I was just thinking of, looking at it, that the upcoming fiscal year, we voted for both of the organizations to get funded.
Yes.
And then there may be a review as to how, when the town budget comes up for discussion again, how this whole thing gets sorted. I just wondered if it made sense to sort of split, looking at it into those 2 separate areas.
Well,
Times.
do you have a time frame?
probably the formal merger would not happen before the fall.
So, I
So
don't know when
we've
we,
assumed that the two allocations that were voted would come.
I would agree, definitely.
So that we have some time
Especially if if the merger occurs after the end of fiscal year.
Oh, yeah,
When is fiscal year?
July
July
1st.
1st.
July, oh, yes, it's gonna, yeah,
So
way
that-
before that, yeah.
That shouldn't be an issue. I don't know when we actually make that distribution. I mean, the voters basically agreed to fund these two organizations, and that amount is allocated to those
Right.
groups. I don't see that,
Next
I don't see that
fiscal
being
year.
an issue for
Right.
us, right?
Okay.
But, you know,
Next
next
year.
fall, budget
2020,
season,
Yeah,
we should all be talking about this so it doesn't disappear
right.
into the fray. But-
So I just had a question, if there was a recommendation from council about how to approach that or a different category, what would the process be for us to approach you about that? Is that a town meeting?
Not necessarily. I would have to review, you know, we'd have to review the policy, and also we'd have to just look at whether, there may be, I haven't looked at that policy in a number of years, and I'm not sure whether there are guidelines or bylaws in it as to how the policies can be changed. So, you know, it's something that I think we'd all be willing to talk about. I just would encourage you to do it early enough in the budget process next year so that it isn't something that as our budget is getting formed, we're suddenly saying, oh, wait a minute, nobody thought this through. So,
Right, by December would be,
yeah.
because we could, I mean, if we restructured that and they were given, you know, the 10,000, then you'd have to look at those other ones too, and the whole formula is gonna be,
Would shift.
yeah, would shift dramatically.
Well, you know, I mean, possibly a simple way to do that would be, again, to have 4 categories and have, you know, one
we
that
could,
provides,
yeah.
I mean, you know, a greater allocation for an organization that provides medical services or in-home services or something.
100% services to the community.
Well, all of those category
Right,
ones
yeah.
do that already, so, but again, council could probably help you advise
Right.
you on, you know, and then, I mean, my guess is we'd all be very receptive to listening to a proposed change in the policy, if that
Yeah.
makes the most sense, and/or, you know, if there's a way to do it in your paperwork so that it makes sense and remains within the boundaries of our policy, then maybe we don't have to worry about it. I don't know.
Right.
But,
Do you serve anybody outside of Putney? Either organization?
Well,
I want to say no,
Sure.
with the caveat of people come through for different classes that we hold at the barn. We don't ask them if they are Putney residents. The meals that we serve are Putney residents. We don't go out of that because Dummerston serves Dummerston, Guilford serves Guilford, things like that. So when people come in and go to a class, they may be from out of Putney. That's not something we ask because it's not something we need to know. We serve whoever comes through the doors.
I only ask out of curiosity because I know the food shelf does serve people outside of Putney. And that maybe the community center is used by people outside of Putney.
It's
So maybe it could be
it's available.
separated, but.
yeah, that's a point, but, yeah, I would think all of them that fit, well, part of it is that they're based in Putney.
Yeah.
So, and primarily,
When she mentioned exclusively
serve.
though, I thought maybe Group A could be like exclusively serves Putney. And
Yeah,
then
but-
Putney-based
That would be very
agencies.
difficult to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
understand.
You,
Yeah.
the people that we serve, I'm not gonna ask them where they
Right.
live.
No,
That's
I
not
understand.
my responsibility to do that. And I know Food Shelf does not ask them that.
Right.
No,
That
of
is,
course not.
that's just not something.
No.
So I would be very reluctant to say definitively
yeah.
Putney people.
Well, it is, again, you know, it's been a long time since I've reviewed it. I don't
It's
know
been
whether
like-
we've
It was like when
reviewed
I
it.
first came on the first year or two.
And
So it's
I
been a
don't
while.
remember whether we review, I mean, we certainly discuss it regularly, because there's always little tweaks in it, but, you know,
This is a
sort
good
of
opportunity
delay,
to look at
exactly,
it again.
to look at it
Yeah.
and see how it's laid out,
Yeah.
because as it's labeled here, it's just Putney-based agencies.
Right.
But, you know, I don't know, so, if you were to come to us with a recommendation, having looked at that policy and reviewed it with Karen,
Yeah.
I'm guessing we'd be receptive, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You've probably looked into this, but it also begs the question, if Putney Family Services is getting funding or grant from Organization A and Putney Cares is getting funding from Organization A, you might be running into the same issue.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
For grant money.
Yes, we're hoping, as I say, that we're hoping that that this wider range and expanded mission will actually attract,
Open other opportunities.
yes, and will impress other donors,
Yeah.
that we're not two parallel siloed organizations, but we really are
Yeah.
doing what we can to work together,
Yeah.
to be one, not just to work together. Well, thank you very much for your time and attention.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, no, sounds like a great idea, and,
Yeah.
you know, if we can be helpful in other ways, Karen would love to help you, as would all of us, but, you know,
no, we'll do what we can.
whatever makes sense.
Do a
Yeah.
little research and we can talk and go from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so, next.
Add that to our list, Deb.
Yeah. Small projects. Okay, Conservation Commission update, recommendation on Wilson Wetland.
Want me to just go
Taking that
ahead?
on? Take it
Yeah, I've written a ton of things to you, so I don't know if you've had time to look it all over. Yay.
Briefly, not as
Briefly.
in-depth as one would need to.
One of the, I can just, I suppose, walk up here.
Do you want to sit here and all the way there?
We're all shifting. I think one of the most important pieces was one I just attached on to things today with the package you got. And that's the Wilson Wetland Preserve goals that we established back in 2016. And I just thought I'd read a couple of those because the resolutions we're proposing really are just emphasizing again and in more clear and concise kind of way what's been the town policy as far as the Conservation Commission thought for quite some time. Goal number 1 is to maintain the Wilson Wetland Preserve as a healthy component of the Sockets Brook Wetland Complex. And that wetland complex is, the state has now said 120 acres, and it's the biggest wetland. And in Putney, it's a Class 2 wetland, and it's significant. And for managing the Wilson Wetland Preserve, we had to encourage the residents of an active beaver colony to help maintain the ponds, wetland, and a balanced ecosystem. And in that series, we had also that we would post the Wilson Wetland. And
So, sorry, and so, I mean, the Wilson Wetland isn't anywhere near 120.
no, it's only 20.
It's the 120 acres is the volume of sort of waters, wetland area, but not,
Our
the town
little
owned
piece of the
portion.
wetland is only 26 acres. The
Right.
reason why it's so important is because there was a problem, as we
Yeah.
know, back in
Yeah.
March of 2012, and that happened on the Wilson Wetland Preserve.
right.
And the beaver dam, the main beaver dam, which we've had so much problem with over the last 9 months, corrected that problem.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it's now in real disrepair, and so far we've only counted 1 beaver that might be around to help remedy the situation, we thought it would be a good time to reemphasize some of these policies in a clarified manner. And they're all in front of you. I actually typed them up in large type, print so I could see them. And I don't know if we just want to start having a discussion or if there's more information that you'd like from me. Basically, we're just really concerned that we need to reestablish a balance between the different kinds of benefits this wetland provides. We have to keep in mind the road, we want that road. And Mary Quinn worked very hard for the last 5 years to make sure that road didn't flood. And just nobody survived the June 19th downpour during the day. And, but ever since June 19th, it's just been really a chore to keep that beaver dam in place. The beaver came right back and repaired it, and then, things happened to it, and then the beaver repaired it again. And the last break in mid-February, the beavers are not, it's too cold, forget it. They are not coming out to do any work. And the second problem that came up, we invited people from the community to some of our discussions, and someone there brought up the fact that he had been hearing single gunshots in the area. And we know that John and Penelope post their land, the Long Meadow Trust land, nobody's supposed to be on the school property with a firearm, and the Wilson Wetland is posted. And so, and it's a single, I mean, it's just, no one's doing target practice. And Chris Andrus and I of the Conservation Commission out clearing culvert fences did hear the same thing. They occur at dusk. And so there's 2 residents who have reported that, and Chris and I have heard them. This was last summer. So we're worried that maybe our beaver population is less than we would like.
Have they shot beaver?
Well, we don't know for sure what that person was doing or what it was shooting. For sure, it was out of season for almost everything.
Okay.
During the summer, all you could shoot would be, you could shoot coyotes, that would be it. And I'm not even sure, I think we do have some coyotes that show up on that land occasionally. But it's a big risk for a hunter to go out of season, in a posted area where obviously they can't even take a coyote and risk their hunting license for that. That's what's worrisome. And, the other thing, did go, Karen asked me to go to a conference that was held by Fish and Wildlife yesterday with road crews in the area in Grafton about beavers and roads and so on.
Beaver management.
Yeah, and we've got a nice, concise, statement. You guys do have the power to take these actions. Nobody else does. It rests with the select board. And the other thing that was mentioned that I found really interesting was the gentleman who's presenting, Chris Bernier, who's been involved with fur bearers for a long time. Yeah. After Tropical Storm Irene, he walked up Saxton's River, and he said it was just a sea of mud at that point. It was just, everything was turbid, everything was silt laden. And suddenly he came upon this little stream that came out of Pleasant Valley, and it was clear water. So he said, what the heck is happening here? So he said he walked up that stream, and what that stream had was a series of beaver dams, all the way up it, beaver dams and ponds. And oddly enough, which I found really hard to believe, none of the beaver dams was damaged. In other words, by keeping the water slowed down all along the way, those beaver dams survived Irene. I mean, ours certainly did. So this concept of sort of keeping a series of beaver dams in the area that sort of slow things down, and I think that also helped when we had the June storm, that the water came up and inundated the road but didn't wash it out, and it was able to be repaired by regrading. That just sort of confirmed my idea about that, but I am not a scientist, he's not a scientist. These are just thoughts and observations. But I just thought that was really curious.
Could I add something? The point that Ann was making about the impact of beavers on water quality is important, that slowing down water and providing for water storage is a safety issue. It's also water quality is obviously very important, not only for potable water or industrial water, but also for wildlife needs as well. And I think the reason this issue is coming before you today is because there's been some concern and some ambiguity as far as whether the town does have a vested interest in this wetland
Could you stand up, sir?
Yeah, sure. It's an unusual situation to have such a ecologically significant wetland complex right in the heart of a town. But I think it's a challenge, but it's also a reflection of what many people in Putney are looking for, is an opportunity to coexist with nature. So in another community, the approach would simply be, the heck with the beaver, this is where we live. But that's not how Putney has wanted to go in the past. But we're still not there yet as far as having a clear sense of what the value of that wetland is to the larger community. And that's why the Conservation Commission felt it was important to try to get some policy from at your level that would make it clear to everyone what the goals are. And specifically with regards to the first item, the gap of air, if you will, between the water and the base of the bridge, if it can be maintained at about 48 inches, which it had been for several years prior, that will it will guarantee a certain ecological consistency of the water levels. If the water levels fluctuate dramatically by having the dam get punctured or removed in part, then it has a ripple effect to a whole host of species: turtles, birds, amphibians, insects. The entire ecosystem sort of has a convulsion at that point. And in nature, certainly beaver dams blow out. That does happen, but it only happens every 30 years or so, and then the cycle repeats. It's believed that the dam's loss a couple months ago was not natural. There's no way to prove that, but it's believed that it was done by people, that there was some sort of a disturbance. Somebody went out with a rod or something and opened up the dam, and that's what caused the water to drain out. So again, it's impossible at a municipal level to legislate nature. You certainly can't prevent otters from coming in and eating the beaver, or coyotes, or there are many things that may happen to that complex. But what you can do is you can provide guidance to the public and make a statement as far as what at least us human beings are supposed to do or not to do in that wetland. And so that's why this has come to you.
Lionel, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you know of any other towns that have a policy in place for this type of situation with beavers?
I don't.
But
I
you
haven't
do?
looked either.
I don't remember which town it was, but there was a line of 4 members of the highway department from one of the towns that was represented yesterday. They just sort of leaned back and said, "Our town won't let us touch the beavers." That's exactly what
they
it
were in
said. So
that
evidently
workshop.
there was some kind of policy that town had, and I'm sorry I can't remember which one it was.
Right, well,
Well,
And-
also, I mean, whether that's a policy or whether, I mean, because, we certainly have not encouraged the highway department to interact with the beavers in any way.
Yeah, we
You know,
don't
there
know.
have been,
Nobody knows
Yeah.
what's going on.
yeah,
And in a lot of ways, like I know Brian spent a lot of time talking with Cynthia way back when about the balance that was needed, and as everybody knows, for a very long time, until Cynthia left, it went along okay. Mary and her little crews were out clearing fences, and occasionally you can, under these regulations, you can, like, we were told a 3-foot by 1-foot dam, a little notch in the beaver dam to allow some excess water to go over before a major rain event or something. That's allowed, but that's about it. That's about all you can do. And we would like to have that authority to go ahead and do that to the beaver dam, the main beaver dam, if it were there occasionally. Right now, it's about a third there, and the water, here's the surface of Sockett's Brook, and here's the base of the old, well, actually, it's the top of the bridge abutment, so it's the bottom of the bridge platform.
Yeah.
That clearance right now is 70 inches. And when we put the wetland to bed back in the fall before the last freeze in December around there, it was 46 to 47 inches clearance. So it was like 46 to 47, and now it's down 2 feet.
It's very visible.
Yeah, and it just looks so sad.
It is sad.
And Mary, we're all sort of get depressed every time we walk through there. And Mary wouldn't go there for the longest time. Yeah, so. But anyway, there still is some water in the pond, so we're hoping that the turtles, which are in the mud, are not freezing to death. There may be sections of mud. The problem with any break or any manipulation of water levels during the winter, like during a January thaw or something like that, is just, it's very dangerous for the animals that have picked a place to overwinter.
Yeah.
And so that's the story, and we just wanted to, again, bring it to your attention, and this time ask for maybe some policy votes to really clarify it.
I think, I'm certainly happy to consider it. I think we would have to run it by council probably. We'd have to make sure that we're not doing anything we're not allowed to do.
Right, because of
Both-
the
both-
water.
both
You don't want
from-
to have A&R
Exactly, mostly from
Right.
A&R.
regulations and.
Yeah.
And I think in your packet, at the back of the packet, there are those regulations that give the select board, no one but the select board, has to be the governing body of the municipality or
Right.
the select board.
Right.
And one is the right to, it gives you actually the right to take beaver if you want, and the other is to remove a dam if you want. So if you have the right to do that, otherwise you can't do it. In other words, you cannot remove a beaver dam more than 2 years old without written approval from A&R.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing we would have to be thoughtful about is if the beaver dam, and A&R, this may be very clear somewhere, I just don't know.
Right.
If the beaver dam, for example, were to be elevated to a level where it were increasing the risk to the town because of a blowout, or, I don't know.
Yeah, that's,
that
they
we
do,
need-
they're very industrious.
We need to be,
Right.
we need to be able to manage that. So
Right,
I
'cause
just
we
think
have the road right there.
yeah,
I don't-
we'd have to do our homework thoroughly before
Right.
we came up with a policy. I'm assuming also that
You can
we,
reverse this, you as a select board certainly can reverse this policy at
Right.
any moment because it's your policy.
right,
That's number one. And A&R does give you the right to do that. If you are having a problem of that nature where the
Yeah.
dam's too high and it's gonna back up and flood the road, which is it's a public safety event. You
Right,
don't wanna do
exactly.
that.
yeah,
That they definitely have rules that allow you to do that. So you can reverse this policy whenever that happens. And the other thing that they showed us yesterday at the get-together of the road crew people was you can put a baffle through the dam. You can put like a hole in the dam, put a pipe through
so
it,
that you can drop.
run the pipe way out into the pond behind the dam. It's sitting on the bottom, and the beaver can't hear the water running. So the water's this little
Still
gadget.
flowing.
There's a box at the bottom that takes in water that doesn't make any sound whatsoever, and the water moves through the pipe and out the other side of the dam, and that helps you maintain
Control the level.
the level without taking the dam apart. And you don't have to go out there all the time, hopefully.
And I'm assuming that importing beavers is not something we can do. Is that correct? Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I think Fish and Wildlife, looks askance about moving beavers
Yeah.
around.
Yeah,
We do have one beaver, depending on, and then we might bring the wrong sex
Right.
You know, I mean, we may have a male beaver and he wants a female beaver,
Right,
and the beaver we bring to him just is another male beaver, and
yeah. But in
They
this
might
day and
have a good
age,
fight.
Ann, we try.
I shouldn't say that, I know.
Do you know that is
We do know there's one
Fresh.
beaver.
down behind our house, I just discovered yesterday,
Ah.
there's fresh beaver sign
Yeah,
Good.
activities.
And
Yeah.
Emily, you've
yeah,
seen
I
that
mean,
too.
you know, hopefully this is an issue that's gonna correct itself
Right.
readily once it
Right.
warms up enough, but,
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
And if not, I don't know, we'll have to.
yeah.
Build a dam. I mean,
Well, that's what I was gonna
what's to
ask.
prevent-
Yeah, and number one, this with authorizing you to maintain.
We can't maintain what's not there.
Yeah, so that was my question, was like, are you going to build a dam to?
You know, that's my question too.
Yeah.
Because these are sort of structured, assuming there's a dam and the water level would
Right.
go up to 50 inches. You know, the clearance would, you know, at least get that high from 70 where it's at now.
I'm guessing for people and not machinery, it's
Right.
surprisingly hard to do.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't do it as well. They actually, the first question that I was asked when I said, have you ever heard of a beaver dam washing out underneath with a hole underneath? And the first reaction of Vermont Fish and Wildlife representative was, is it built on a human structure? Because a lot of times beavers will find an old stone wall
Right.
and start with from there, and then the old stone wall is sort of rickety and it goes out. And so that's, you know, but it wasn't. You know, the only thing they could think of was maybe it was built on top of a older dam base, which it probably was. It's very hard to know, but no, we are not going to go out and build a dam. We don't know how to do it. And I just, you know, it does cross, you know, our minds that we should do something because we've got a hole 8 feet deep, you know. It's just crazy. And I think what we're more likely to come back to you and say is the beavers have built a dam pretty much near the old dam, but, you know, downstream a little or, you know, in some different location. And we'd like the protection granted here extended to that new structure. That, I think that might happen, because I don't know how they're gonna figure that one out. But no, we are not asking. I looked at that when I first saw it and I said, this means we have to go out and do something.
Yeah.
But we don't have that intention.
Out of curiosity, does Four Winds do anything with looking at beavers? And I mean, one of the things that crosses my mind is if you get the kids really into this, they're kind of advocates for you then.
We
You know.
did it last spring.
Yeah.
Dam maintenance kind of thing, or?
No, just out studying beavers.
Beavers,
So it was
yeah.
really great to have. We actually saw beavers with the kids. It was the big beaver that was killed in June last year. But yeah, they're very interested. And
Yeah,
they're the
they're-
ones actually that are noticing fresh chews now because they're in the forest all the time.
So they learned very well what to
Yeah.
look for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when they're adults, they'll, you know, appreciate all this. What
Yeah.
they learn now,
Absolutely.
and especially if they learn all of the different types of things that the beavers contribute to for the town specifically.
It's kind of cool if they were out there at on the Frog Highway trail right now, they would notice a really stark decrease. I mean, everybody can notice a decrease in the water, but there are whole trees that I can remember kids being up to their thighs in water, looking at the chews that are now 4 feet off the shore. And so they'd have a reaction if they went out there right now, because they would remember checking that out and standing in the water.
Well, we should probably do some homework
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
and then,
And
Good.
you and I can get together.
Okay. I know you've got the authority to take dams out, so I don't see why you can't have the authority to protect them. And you certainly, I think, have the authority to say hands off the beaver to everyone.
yeah, I don't, I think that's probably a good idea. I don't imagine if you have somebody that's targeting them, I'm not sure that this additional layer of protection is gonna make much of
Well,
a
we'll
difference,
just
but
have
I
to-
don't know.
Yeah, we'll just have to keep on,
Yeah.
trying to find out who that is.
I want to say something in that regard.
Mhm.
I spoke to because I have heard gossip, let's say, or a supposition that an abutter, being my brother,
Right.
there might be some response. I spoke to him this afternoon and he said absolutely that they have had there's been no interference with beavers from that landowner or.
And I've talked to his son before, quite a few months ago, and he said the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, so I
Yeah,
want that
no, I
to
certainly
be
wouldn't.
on record.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't expect that from Peter. It is the one parcel of land, I think, that in many people's memory, or some people's memory, used to be grazed. I mean, that was cow pasture not that long ago.
So Brad Wells was the last guy to.
Exactly. So, you know, it's not surprising that some people might think, if anybody had a vested interest in doing that, but I certainly would not expect that.
Well, they have property in Westminster West
Yeah.
where they have to manage the beavers because the beavers threaten the farm.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's- that's
That's different.
perhaps a confusion there.
Yeah.
Isn't there someone that does trap right in that area? Right off.
I know Mary has talked to, she's had
Legally
conversations
traps, I
with
should
a
say.
trapper, and so, yeah, there are people.
And I don't think, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Peter posts his land, does he? Do you
No.
know? Yeah,
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think his land is
So,
posted.
so if that's the case, somebody could trap on that property.
Well,
Not
I
without
don't know
his
if it-
authorization.
In New Hampshire, you cannot trap without written authorization from
From the
each
landowner.
landowner, yes, specifically, and it's only good for 1 year. They have to come back every year for a new sign up. I don't know if that's the case in Vermont.
That you do have to talk to the landowner and get his authorization to trap. You
So
can't
it's
just
not
do
the
it.
same as regular hunting.
But I think it's the way you post your land too. Because Emily, you and I just went through this little exercise. Yep.
Right, because some of the postings say clearly no hunting, shooting, trapping.
Right.
Yeah.
Or by permission only.
Right, yeah.
And if you
And
don't
that's what-
post it, it's open, it's a free-for-all.
Right.
Not for,
Yeah.
not for trapping. I don't believe that's the case. That's something to definitely find out where that stands. Because in New Hampshire, that's definitely not the case. You could say no trapping, or you could say trapping, and it wouldn't matter. They have to literally get the landowner to sign a particular form, and then they have to turn that in to New Hampshire Fish and Game every year, and it's only good for 1 year, and they must do that every year. It's the only way they can.
Is that because there's not, because the trap is there and not somebody present to monitor it necessarily?
I think so,
Is that what
yeah.
that's about?
It's
I'm just curious.
It's a pretty lethal system.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and it does have far-reaching ecological impacts, so I think Fish and Game understands that it's different. You kill 100 deer, it's not gonna make any difference, but if you kill enough beaver on one wetland, then it'll be a different wetland.
Changed.
The other thing is that a trap is indiscriminate. A hunter knows what he's
Exactly.
shooting
No,
at.
that's sort of what I'm thinking, is
Right.
that
Yeah.
it's something that, you know, if you're pointing a gun or looking through a scope or whatever,
You know,
you have a pretty good idea of what you're targeting, but otherwise, yeah,
and a trap will take anything
yeah.
that steps in it.
So Ann, one more question for you. So if you're thinking like on a policy, what about enforcement?
Yeah.
Who's gonna do the enforcement? It's something, you suspect something, are you calling Fish and Game, are you expecting the select board to deal with it?
No, we'll just continue what we're doing, working with neighbors and working with our game warden, Kelly Price, who is on board with the initiative of trying, he wants to know who is shooting out there off-season. But the problem is, we have to, get him out here like immediately or triangulate and try to find this person,
Right.
but
I would assume we would do signage of some sort, but whether, it was the town that made that happen or the Conservation Commission, it would certainly be appropriate for the Conservation Commission to pursue a grant or something to create the signage. But the issue is cultural. So historically, beavers are considered a nuisance animal. And to this day, there are a lot of people who think of beavers as closely related to rats and things that, they don't have rights, they're not important, they're not valuable. And so that's what we're hoping to change through the policy. Not so much enforcement or anything like that, but just
For protection.
can we have a foundation?
Yeah.
Can we have an understanding that we could bring forward through a press release, and
Education.
education, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that occurs to me, and I don't know how practical something like this is, but, certainly the technology is there to have a game cam of some sort. Whether you're doing that, I can imagine you, sitting at home watching a game cam to watch what the beavers are doing. Exactly. So, you could sort of use it as an educational tool, but if you happen, it might help track down somebody trying to do
Those are
something.
video cameras that take like they live stream all the time, yeah. I don't know how this.
And/or ones that are activated by motion, so that, if you place them properly, anything that that would be
Right.
probably
We've done
hard to
that,
do with
we've done
beavers,
that, but Landmark wanted their camera back, so it left about a month before the last spring.
something to think about.
Okay, no, that's true.
The beaver cam,
Yeah.
and a live feed in, Don Linden's classroom at PCS could be kind of fun,
We're featured on our new website.
Good idea.
Interactive.
Okay, well, thank you for, taking it under consideration and figuring out what to do, because we need help.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll
We're
keep you
sad.
busy. I'm gonna keep you busy.
Yeah, no
No
more conference.
Don't worry.
Oh, no, I have plenty to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, wastewater allocation request, Nancy Shepherd,
Nancy Shepherd,
89 Westminster Road.
89.
That will be on the left-hand side as you're going away from town.
Wouldn't she be on something?
I'm not sure which
No,
one is it.
she,
Is that the
no,
one right across from the?
I should have got you a map, I'm sorry. I don't think of things like that.
Is it in between Hickory Ridge and Boot Hill?
No, it's much further.
It's closer?
Yeah.
Oh, no,
It's
no, no.
before
Yeah,
the
it's-
school.
that's-
I'm way up.
Yeah,
It's on the left. She has septic, but it's failing.
Oh,
She
okay, that's
wants
why,
to
okay.
hook up to the force main.
right.
Yes.
Which
So-
one, is it the big white one? I can't.
I'm trying to think, it's,
Yeah, it doesn't go past, the
Yeah,
school
the
is.
system
is
doesn't
the-
go
is the
past
last,
it,
yeah.
yep.
it must be
Right.
before Meadowdale Farm, right? Is it the one right before?
No, that's Susan Wilson, Susan and Philip Wilson.
I don't think I have.
Might be the next one
Maybe
down,
it's
I'm not
the
sure.
next one.
Anyway, it
Yeah.
doesn't,
Sorry, guys, next time I'll have a visual for you. But,
Oh, wait, you do.
well,
Oh,
sort
it's
of.
not a map.
No, it's just
I need
showing
that.
her property and how it's gonna get connected.
do I have this? Which one? Oh, this is right on the back of the application, yes, okay.
So basically, she'll hook up to our connection, but everything is her responsibility. So everything on her parcel, the line, the pump station, will all be her responsibility. Michael Marquis done the plan. And she is hooking up, this is an allocation to treat sewer. So it's for sewer discharge, it would be about 250 gallons per day. And,
So it's a single ERU?
yes, one ERU by design.
Yeah.
So she spelled out the application, paid the fee. So with your approval, we'll be able to do the letter.
And we have capacity, obviously.
Yeah. And we'll get it off to Michael and he can get it to the state and get everything permitted.
Good. So moved.
Yep, so moved.
Seconded.
I see notes.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the application for wastewater allocation and connection from Nancy Shepherd at 89 Westminster Road. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I already did local emergency audit contract approval for fiscal year end June 30th.
So I read through the contract.
So we just finished a 3-year with him, I believe, didn't we?
I thought so, yeah.
Yes.
So this is a 1-year, is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Why only one this time?
Well, because there's talk about him,
Retiring, I would
Yes.
think, yeah.
so
Which wouldn't necessarily mean we wouldn't want to continue.
continue with their services.
Yeah, but
We could go out to bid, just to see.
this time, we went out to bid, you may already know this, Laura, but it's generally considered to be good practice to go out to bid periodically. There's not sort of a set rate. We did that probably the last time we got the 3-year contract with him, I would guess. We went out to bid beforehand. And there was one person who was, it cost us, what's the cost? It's roughly 12?
It was 10.8 this last budget,
10.
and it'll be 11,000 for the next fiscal year.
You know, the last time we went out to bid, there was one that was way lower, but it was somebody who was far away.
Is that
and
Maine
sort of
or
didn't-
something?
Yeah, it didn't necessarily make sense. And then there were a couple that were way higher. And then there was John, where he's been doing it for at least a dozen years. He's done it every year, I think.
That's good, though. I mean,
There's pros and cons,
Yeah.
but yes, it's
Yeah.
good. And they're good and well-respected, et cetera. You know, it made sense to stay with them last time around because of that historical knowledge, et cetera. So I certainly would be comfortable with another year with them. And the pricing is, for what we get, is definitely reasonable,
yeah,
quite reasonable, so.
and he's easy to work with, I mean.
Yeah, and he's very familiar with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
So, unless anybody thinks otherwise. Yeah, I would say, I mean, if he is gonna retire, you know, that might be a reasonable time to go out to bid again.
right. But we can have that discussion with him when he
When that time comes, yeah,
starts doing the audit.
yeah.
And this might be particularly, as I think about it, just with all the change over,
Right,
to have the same person
yep.
who's familiar
That's a good
with
point.
the other
Yeah.
managers
Right.
and all that.
Yeah,
And-
because we
and-
know there's gonna be a lot of,
And he can be
complex.
helpful to you
Yes.
in understanding why things were done, because he's worked with Cynthia in numerous different towns as well, so, you know, there's certainly sort of a knowledge base of Putney's issues. I mean, he goes all the way back to when Cynthia was brought on board, because the finances were
Right.
the best that they were, so.
no, I would
he would be-
recommend
yeah,
that you
Stay with him.
stay with
Yeah, I think that
John
would be a good idea.
for this year, yep. So
Ready
here
for motion,
is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
this is the original, so if you don't mind signing that, or I can sign it, and I don't know who usually signs it. You can, Josh, that'll be fine.
So,
Yeah, so I'll move to approve the contract with Auditor Mudgett Jennett and Crow Eisner
I second that.
for 1 year,
Oh, sorry.
or for this coming fiscal
Yeah.
year.
yes. It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for Mudgett, Jeanette, and Craig Weisner to do our annual audit. And I don't think we have any individual audits this year, do we? Do we have any funding that's big enough for that? I don't think so. So it'll just be straight up town audit.
Right, yep,
What would an individual audit usually be?
If it's, you have to have, if you have a program in which you're getting more than, like a grant, for example, in which it's, I think 250 is the cutoff, then you have to do an audit, a special audit for that as well. Individual audit is the right term for it, isn't it? I think so. Single audit, individual
Single,
audit, something,
yeah.
yeah. But I don't think we have that.
various audits throughout the year, like we have a workers' comp audit coming up April 19th. But that's with the state.
But these are for specific, whenever you
Yeah.
get, for example, I mean, the last one I can remember was the first sidewalk section, or maybe it was, the water system. Well, the water system certainly, but when you have federal, it's a common, I don't know the details well enough to explain it properly, but it's basically when you have individual projects that rise to a certain level, those are required to be audited separately. And one of the reasons we don't have those anymore is because several years ago, we consolidated all our funding for various things, and so it's all funded through a single.
And it's all done through this audit here.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But in some cases of funding, it has to have separate audit, so.
Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve Budget Jeanette Krog-Weisner as our auditors for FY 18-19, I guess it would be,
Yeah, yeah.
right? If there's no further discussion,
19, yeah.
all in favor?
Yeah, 19.
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
And it is in the budget for 11,000 for 19. Today's the 11th. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Okay, Select Board appointment list, Wyndham Regional Commission approval.
Alice?
Alice Mays.
She has done that, she's been doing it for
Yes.
several years
Yeah.
now. Yeah,
I'm gonna search for a second person now.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's important, especially for
I do
the
too.
Wyndham Regional Commission,
Yeah,
and to have them active as well.
and it's, you know, having people that can advocate for us
Right.
within the Wyndham region. There's a typo in that, it says Wyndham Regional Commissioners Representative.
We'll have to
Not that it
correct
matters,
that.
I think
Oh,
autocorrect got you undone.
Down. Anything's possible.
But
Wyndham
yes, if we
Regional,
could find somebody else,
Yeah.
that would be great.
oh, we'll do. They offer a lot,
I don't know how much you would
a
like
lot
that.
of support. So,
Joe Grant,
Yeah. I don't think you'd like
sort of a Freudian slip kind of thing. And does he have a D in his name?
Yes. Yes.
Does he? Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
yes. And he
There was one extra letter, might as well have another, right?
Oh, that.
Nice gal.
I flew through this thing.
I am looking at it, obviously.
Yeah, so we should,
She did a really good job.
I
It was
believe
very
it.
difficult to get people to come back and
Yes,
respond.
respond,
And
yes.
if they didn't respond, they're on the list.
There you go.
That's what we're doing.
That's the reason I see my name on that
There's
list.
only a couple of instances where I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing we should really be looking out for, it would, well, maybe this is less important than it used to be, but Wyndham Solid Waste, Dan's been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
But it may be less important now than it was, I don't really know. Not sure. So, that's let's see, so we could probably, and who's the Connecticut
Do the
River
other
Joint
one,
Commission
that's,
new appointment?
Joe Vida?
Yep, Joe.
Is that?
I don't know who that is.
Christine,
'cause
and
it was-
I think they have a kindergartner at the school.
That would sound, that would be
That's
about
the
right.
same, yeah, that's the same one, yeah.
So I think this is good because this is the only person on this committee, another important committee.
Yep,
Yeah.
if it's him, based on his son, definitely, it's a good kid.
So I would recommend both for,
So,
So make a,
and, well, have we already done all of these other appointments? I mean, should we just approve,
Yeah, you'll
motion
have,
to approve the slate of appointees for 2018?
yes, and then you'll have to sign these too though, because they do require your signature.
Oh, because they're outside
Right.
entities, yeah.
The Energy Committee, isn't, is it Elizabeth Stead that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
she's not listed on here?
If they need
Oh,
to
senior
come up for a
solutions.
new appointment.
Right.
Oh, okay, this is only, okay.
Right,
This is only for
expired
2019.
terms.
For expired terms.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh geez, I forgot to
I visited.
reply to you for the safety committee that night.
Okay.
Come to think of it.
But you're probably on there if you didn't reply.
I
well,
guess not.
Oh, no, that's not either. Oh. What were you gonna say? Mary?
I visited with the Energy Committee last night, just to, I
Was it
popped in. and-
Interesting.
It was actually really interesting.
They're
They had a
getting
guest
active.
speaker.
I think they're
and-
pretty active.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was an
They-
exciting meeting.
I mean, often with town committees, as you
Mhm.
probably know, they tend to
Ebbs and flows.
do this, yeah, but they haven't been active, because Daniel used to be, Hovis used to be sort
Yeah.
of leading it up, and he hasn't for, no, I don't know whether he's involved at all right now, but.
that reminds me, and I have to ask the question. The energy coordinator,
Mhm. It was listed as Daniel on this.
is that a position, it's an appointed position, has to be somebody in Putney? And there's no stipend for that,
No,
that's what I thought. And it is vacant at the moment, but he expressed interest.
Daniel did,
Mhm.
and is he living in Putney? I don't know where Daniel's living.
No,
He's in West, I think, isn't he?
I just wanted to clarify before
And that's the,
I don't really know what that is, I haven't found any information on it.
Do,
what's the title?
wouldn't,
Energy coordinator.
I thought Alice
Alice Mays?
Mays, didn't she want to be that
Yeah, I
at one
can't
point?
remember.
And then Morgan Casella, well, I guess he was the chair of the committee, I don't know. if
That's what I,
the same.
that's sort of what I think maybe
Yeah.
Alice was doing.
Now, I
Yeah.
thought about Morgan as well, and I've never met him, but he has a full plate.
Yeah,
Although he is on the energy committee, so I don't know why we couldn't have an energy coordinator on the energy committee.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Intuitively, that makes sense to me.
Yes.
And he's
Right.
incredibly qualified.
Yeah, he
Yes.
is, yeah.
Yeah,
Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know in Brattleboro, that's a I just met with Kate O'Connor from Brattleboro Select Board. And we actually had a conversation, I don't know what led into that, but we actually had a conversation about that. And that's a stipend position in Brattleboro that pays $10,000 a year. I was like, you know, but it's Brattleboro.
yeah, Brattleboro's,
We
yeah.
did, Daniel proposed it being a stipended position at one point, and I don't think we did that. Cynthia would know, we
Yeah.
can check with her.
Well, it would
But
be
I
in the
don't,
budget, but,
yeah, no, it's not currently, I almost think that was like a short-term possible thing, but I don't,
you could
but I
be
think we.
right, but I don't remember
I think we,
seeing.
we decided that did not make sense, was my recollection.
Yeah, that's, yeah,
But,
Well, it's
Right.
definitely not for
no,
Brattleboro's prices.
no. No, I mean, Daniel's point when he was talking about it, and it was definitely a valid point, was that he was saving the money the town money
Money,
over.
right.
I'm a little tired, sorry.
It's okay.
But, you know, it's a valid point. I mean, if you have somebody who you're stipending, but you're actually either getting grant money coming in or saving money by the project being done,
Right,
that's something to consider. But I don't think it's ever been done by us in the past, but it has been a discussion.
okay.
It came up last night, they're looking at possibly benchmarking the town buildings on an annual basis. That was something they were interested in doing, which seems like a really good idea. I introduced via email Gary, I can't think of his last name right now. He's from the Villages, Towns and Villages, downtown.
In Brattleboro?
No, the state organization.
Oh,
with Morgan because we are a designation, so there is possibly
Right.
grant money.
Right.
And it seems like they have steam right now. They're
They
excited
do,
about
and
things.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I left like woohoo. You know?
I'm actually gonna go to the May meeting, just to meet the members and,
Next month's?
Yeah.
So do we, as a board, do we act as liaisons to any
no,
of
but
these?
it's a very good idea that you could.
Yeah.
There you go. I recommend it highly, because you would be more educated about what's happening.
Well, that's
You
why
know-
I dropped in yesterday. And the planning commission was here in the same night. I'm like, I
Right.
don't have time to do
Yeah.
both, but I plan on trying to visit each one just to kind of get an idea of what they're doing. And
But if you just sat in, that would be,
Mhm.
because that way you're not obligated to be there every meeting.
You know,
Yeah.
the other thing I mean, some of them we hear from regularly, Conservation Commission
Right.
being probably the
Right.
most notable example. But we also can invite the committee to a select board meeting at any time
Get
to
an
sort of
overview.
bring us up to,
Yeah.
you know,
Good idea,
we
too.
have done that in the
Yeah.
past and certainly can do that again. And that's true with, you know, Dan Toomey, for example, comes generally at least a couple times a year to update sort of what's going on with the solid waste process.
Green
But
Up Day too.
that's
is coming
certainly
up.
something we could, you know, we could sort of come up with some sort of a calendar for having some of them anyway.
Right.
You know, usually it happens mostly out of necessity for one reason or, you know, there are issues that come up that then, oh, why don't we get Dan in to talk about it, or why don't we get Allison to talk about it, or whatever, but certainly something we could do. Or,
Yeah.
Norm Bartlett comes in, I don't think he came in last year, but he usually comes in, rescue, you know, especially at the time of year when some of this comes up when we're doing budget season, that one being one of them, but, you know, that's another thing that I don't know whether you would have interest in attending, but Rescue Inc. has board meetings that, you know, they have a meeting, I think maybe an annual meeting that's sort of more almost review-like than some of the others. Sometimes those are good to attend, but.
as much as I have time for, I'd be interested in dropping in on as many of them as possible, just so that I understand how everything works. What does the tree warden do?
He hasn't done much recently, primarily because he has had a long-term illness,
Sorry to hear that.
which he's doing better from. He's had Lyme disease for
Oh.
years. But he's supposed to basically, if there's kind of a proposal to plant trees, it's the tree warden that thinks about that and/or helps planting trees. And actually one that was very clearly committed to that has not been fulfilled, and not because the tree warden hasn't dealt with it. I'm not sure actually whose responsibility, Tom might know. But in the original agreement about building the fire department, there were supposed to be a line of trees between the fire department and Route 5. It's a somewhat tight spot because there's a power line right there too, but it is something, I'm sort of a tree geek, so I think about that a lot. But, you know, it would be nice to have some trees in there. That building could use a little softening. So, you know, we haven't budgeted for that, but it's certainly something we could consider, and/or it doesn't take a lot, you know, particularly if you put them in small, but you put in something fast growing, it happens pretty quickly, and
Right.
it would be nice to do that, because I'm almost sure it was sort of a legal requirement of the fire department getting built. Joan Knopper would certainly know.
In their site plan,
In their site plan, exactly.
yeah.
And I don't know whether there were specific trees that were proposed or
Yeah.
whatever, but, you know, something relatively tall and thin. And it would be, you know, evergreen might be nice because it would be year round, but then
Yeah.
again, sort of anything. So that might be something worth thinking about.
Is that the town's responsibility
I
or
think
the state?
I think it was the town's responsibility.
Really? Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Because the land is,
State-owned, but
Right.
but it's leased. But no, Pip might know also.
I can ask Tom.
Tom might know.
He might have the
although-
plans too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not sure Tom was as enthusiastic about that idea as some people were, but it was.
I don't mind looking at the fire department
Yeah.
when I drive by. I don't.
No,
think
no, I
it's-
don't either, but
you
there
know?
are some people who
Right.
it bugs them. But also it was, again, I'm almost sure it was part of the site plan review, so.
Yeah, and if it was approved, they should have
Exactly,
them.
yeah, so, and that's.
That would be a violation, which I would have to know.
There you
If that's
go.
the case. Thank
Yeah.
you, Josh.
Track somebody down
Man.
and take care of
Why is it
them.
required to prevent erosion or?
No, just a
Noise.
visual thing.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, noise and visual.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, primarily visual. I think it was just because that's a state-owned parcel that was purchased way back when to have the park and ride actually, which was not done. I think it was purchased in the 60s or 70s, or maybe even just eminent domain when the highway went in. I'm not even sure. But for years, it was essentially an empty treed lot. And so when all the trees suddenly went away, that was part of, that was a big concern for people that the fire department was gonna get plunked down
Yeah,
and all the trees that were there were gonna go away, so that
If you
was
take
a
them out,
point
you
of
should put
contention.
some back.
Some back in,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. Well, that took them a long time to get that parking ride.
It did take a long time to do that.
Oh.
And even once they got it took a long time.
Yeah.
So, but some days it's got quite a few cars in it. It's good.
It's working.
We've used it for quite a few things.
Yeah.
So it's convenient to have it now. I wish it
Yeah.
were close, I wish that it were parking for town more, but
Yes, no, that's unfortunate, but because, I'm sure that part of the state's interest in doing that, and I don't know whether this is specifically listed in the emergency operations plan, but, staging area.
Yeah, it's a good
If you
staging
had a
area.
major disaster on 91
Right.
and you needed staging, it's a valuable thing to have, so. But it was contentious when it went in, that's for sure. But, all right, so somebody want to move that slate?
Can I ask for a
Yes.
minor correction? Aside from the typo in Mr. Grant's name and regional incorrected, under Public Safety Committee,
Yeah.
can we add Mr. Stephen Head,
Yes.
please?
Yeah, go ahead, throw me in there, yeah. Sorry,
I was waiting, I
saw that
wanted to ask you
email.
before.
Yeah, I know, I saw your email and I kept,
Ignoring it.
me too. All right, so I'll move to appoint Joe Gruta to the local river, the Connecticut River
We
Joint
can,
Commission.
I think we
Or
can just move
do
the whole
all of them?
slate.
But you need it separate for these? or-
Those just need a signature.
Just
Yeah,
signature, okay.
just need signatures.
All right, so I'll move to approve the appointments for 2018 as listed.
I second that.
We moved and seconded to approve the list of 2018 appointments as listed. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I love that we still have a layer of coal.
The fence viewer struck me. I'm like,
Yeah.
really, fence viewer? What do you think about that?
It used to be an important thing.
Is Wayne even still in town?
Yes.
He is?
Yeah.
I haven't seen him for a long time.
I think it says signatures, but I think
Yeah, I
one
think
is
you're good.
sufficient, right? Okay. All right, town manager's report.
All right, I'm gonna be quick. So I met with the Animal Advisory Board yesterday morning. They are meeting tomorrow morning,
Good.
and then we have a follow-up on the 24th. So they have been tasked with reviewing the animal control ordinance, and they're gonna incorporate some of the state regulations. We do have Westminster's. I talked to Russ Hodgkins. He made 2 changes to their ordinance. He increased the civil fine,
Fine.
and he also made it mandatory that it's a leash law for the entire town, not just designated areas, like the village.
So that would include like Putney Mountains trails and.
Yeah, leash, yeah, their dogs have to be leashed
Mhm.
everywhere in town, wherever they're out.
So would we put signage, like would that be something where signage comes into play? Up at Putney Mountain and.
No, I don't think that's up to us to do signage. I mean,
I
It
would,
may
I'm
already be
not,
up there.
I'm not a fan of that idea, but.
right, and they will recommend an amendment to the ordinance once they review it and, decide if they want to revise it.
Right. I mean, I can imagine us definitely saying maybe leash laws on town properties. Enforcement, of course, is,
That's the other thing, how do you enforce it? Ian was here today, I asked him to be here. I'm not here in this meeting, but I need to talk to him about some other things. And, he's our enforcement officer right now. But I've also tasked the Animal Advisory Board with updating the description for an animal control officer. Training is recommended by the Humane Society. Janet Goldstein is really good. She has a lot of connections. And Abby is eager to get the ball
participate.
rolling.
Yeah,
They're looking for another member, because Maggie Smith she's on the board,
Yeah.
but she's not active, and as soon as we can find a replacement,
She'd be
she'll be
happy to,
done,
yeah.
yes. But, so
Now-
that ball is going.
Right. One thing I discovered, I became an owner of a dog within the last week and a half. So I got to get a license and
get
go
out
through all
while you
this
still
stuff.
can.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things was, and I don't know if this is a town thing or a state thing, but you can get a farm license for a dog, and then leash laws don't apply.
Yeah, and registering doesn't apply either, because they're a farm, they're a working dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
farm.
But they have to, technically, they have to be a working dog. I mean, I'm
Right.
not sure, because I
Right.
know the
Yeah.
majors have,
Yes.
yeah, they have
Yes.
dogs, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I guess what I'm saying is that, would that be a loophole then for people? If there were leash laws throughout, all they have to do is pay an extra $4, have a working dog,
Right.
and they can say that.
Right.
I think if push came, exactly. If
Yeah.
push came to shove, you'd have to be able to prove that, which would probably,
Well, it's kind of
Not be
defining
that
a
easy.
service dog.
Yeah.
What defines a service dog?
Right.
Just because it has a jacket on it?
Sometimes it's obvious,
Right.
sometimes it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
So, they're gonna be looking at that, and I don't know how quickly it'll get done, but right now, like I said, they're meeting again tomorrow. But I think their first priority is gonna be animal control officer description.
Yeah,
And they do know that they have to make recommendations to the select board, they can't just decide, but they're getting started. So. And if you know anybody that might be a good candidate for that board, right now it's a 3-member board, but it could be a 5-member board and it would be just, more productive.
all right.
So sidewalk phase 3, I have a meeting with Wyndham Regional Commission on Friday morning. Erica Roper and Susan McMahon. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna go over what needs to be done. And they're gonna help me out so we can start phase 3 hopefully.
Who did you say, and Susan McMahon?
Susan McMahon and Erica Roper. And they can also find additional funding if we need it.
Because Matt Mann from Wyndham Regional used to
He
be,
was the
Matt's no
contact.
longer there.
He's not there?
No, he had left when I was in Westminster.
okay.
Yeah. But I'm getting excited about the sidewalk phase, phase 3, because we have a sidewalk to nowhere right now.
You might want to, there has been a sidewalk committee of which
Yeah,
Steve was, I was for phase 1 and then Steve was for phase 2.
Is that the public
Safety? No,
all right,
this
so
is
this
just,
is different.
Sidewalk committee.
Really, okay.
Pip, I think, might have been on that. I don't remember. I know, but there has always been a representative from Landmark. I'm just thinking you should include,
particularly for this one.
you should include
All right.
Landmark in
I
this
didn't even know
discussion.
that,
So
and
you
I
might
would-
want to touch
Yeah,
base
no, I
with.
would love to have them join me.
It was originally,
It was V-Trans that, I think the guy from V-Trans would come to the meetings too. No, I can't remember his name.
Some-
John
Sometimes.
LaBerge.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm working with him through email.
and first
But,
it was Kyle Scrocky, but I think I don't remember whether he stayed on with you guys or not.
Now, Kyle asked me about phase 3.
So touch base with Kyle
I
and just
will.
say,
I mean, if
because
he wants to be here.
somebody should,
Yeah.
you might want.
There's some elements that have to be looked at. I'm just gonna let you guys know that our tap, I don't know if it's a contract or what it is, but that's expired, okay? So we have to renew that. And John
And
Labarge,
tap is what?
it's the grant,
The-
that we need to do a letter of intent,
Okay.
stating that we're still interested in this, so we can
Renew that.
renew that.
Okay.
So that's the first priority. RSG, the engineer,
Right,
we have to recontract with them, renegotiate.
yeah.
That's expired. But I want to get my head around the whole phase 3. I have some knowledge of it, but
Yeah, much of the reason that those would be expired is because it was proposed to go out to bid at the same time as phase 2. But first, I think it was mostly the state that held that out. wasn't
That
it?
and the right of way, there was still
The
one right of way.
easements.
There was still.
Easements, yeah.
yeah, because we're still waiting on 2 out of 3 easements. While Chick was here, it looked like they wanted to build a wall where Robinson's slope is.
Right.
So that's off the table at this point, which is a good thing. There will be a slope there, but it will impact Robinson's backyard a little bit. So we have to talk to them a little more. But
There was a liability thing too, right, with snow shedding off the roof?
That's not Robinson. No,
That's
not-
Murray.
Oh, that's
That's
Murray.
Murray.
That's the other one.
But
Yeah.
the engineer has redesigned that section. It's not as wide, and it's in our right of way,
Yeah.
so
That works.
it will work without an
Would
easement.
that be that would be state right of way, not our right of way?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So things are happening with that, and it'd be nice to see that it gets finished.
Keeps going, yeah. That would be great.
So that's one of my goals.
Good.
It's a good call. The original phase 2 and phase 1 and phase 2, they were both paid through grants, weren't they? Did the town contribute? How much did the
There's a
town
match.
contribute?
I think it's a 10% match,
Is it
maybe,
10?
or maybe,
Oh, wow.
can't
It's
remember,
no
it's 10 or
higher-
20. I
yeah,
don't think it
it-
was, I don't
It's
think
no
it was
higher
20.
than 20 though, but
No, I almost think it was 10 on both of them.
Okay.
But the first one was a much more expensive process, both because it was longer and more complicated. But
yeah.
phase 2, but phase 3 is also longer and more
Yeah,
complicated.
right.
Yeah, that's-
Significantly more complicated.
I feel like it's so important though. I pass
Absolutely.
those
Yeah.
kids walking on that
No, it's
road every
terrible.
day, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
scary.
No, there's no question.
Well, that corner too has a culvert at the very bottom of that slope, which is owned by the state.
Yes.
And they want to extend that culvert.
Well, there's been all sorts of discussion about how to
Yeah.
engineer.
And I had asked RSG, I go, so who's paying for that? And he's like, well, that's right now in your cost. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, we'll have to revisit.
Yeah, that's the kind of
that,
thing that
but,
should be revisited, because it
Yeah.
also may fall under, revised, it's not necessarily flood water, but resiliency or
Yeah.
something, the state has been redesigning a lot of that stuff, so. Yeah, no,
So, yeah, with the changes, it has to go back to the state for approval, so. We're getting down to crunch time where we're not gonna have enough time to put it out to bid.
Not this
and
year.
then build it.
yeah,
And Landmark would love to have it done this year. So,
It won't happen,
I
probably.
don't think so,
Well,
but you can find
there's a
out.
chance,
Yeah.
there is a chance, but we
Yeah.
can't sit on it much longer, because we will lose that window of opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, mostly for putting it out to bid. I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
that kind of should have happened 2 months ago, but that's the way it is. But yeah, no, I mean, rekindle with everybody and.
yeah, I will.
But definitely include Landmark, because they will want to,
Okay.
they will want to hear that conversation.
Yep. Let's see, what else do we have?
And you might also just want to touch base with Pip about it.
I will.
I don't remember how involved in phase 2 he was. He was very involved in phase 4.
Yeah, not as much in phase 2, occasionally.
But he certainly should be.
So on the highway front, and I wish, I should have mentioned it when Ann was here, but Brian intends to do Sand Hill this year. That was that $20,000 grant, where he's gonna ditch Sand Hill and then put that sediment
Yeah.
pond down at the bottom,
Mhm.
so it won't be traveling into the
Now, he
wetlands.
still had money for runoff.
He does, he's got $13,000 left for the grant in aid, because he did Tavern Hill
Right.
and high-low bidding.
Yeah.
So we're gonna finish that one up too.
And does he know what he's going to do with that or not yet?
No, he didn't specify, but I keep reminding him that it's out there and we should utilize it.
One that would be worth looking at anyway, and I don't know whether it's a possibility or the right one, but pre-strive.
Okay,
If there's something we can do there that would be helpful. And I've talked to him about that, he knows that, but just so it's on your radar, just
Priest?
try.
Priest.
Yeah. It's off of River Road.
And then,
You used to pass it, but you know.
I know, I was gonna say, you passed it like, when you lived down there.
It's a complicated situation for a number of different reasons, but if,
I'll bring that to his
Just-
attention.
yeah, just bring it up
Try to feel
with
him
him.
out, see
Yeah.
what he says. We just put in for the structures grant, for Fred Houghton Road culvert. And, yeah, for 2019 at 190,000, so we'll see if we're at the top of the list, the bottom of the list, but, that went to the Agency of Transportation.
yeah.
So the deadline for that was like April 15th.
And where are we on Holland Hill?
Holland Hill, it's in design.
Mhm.
You guys signed the contract for
Yeah.
Michi.
Yeah.
And he's gonna approach the new owner to try to get the
Oh,
easement.
that's right, yeah.
And,
For the workaround, you mean, or for the detour?
yeah, for the
yeah.
detour, the one
Is that
way.
Jack? Is that Jack? Bill?
No, what, no.
It's
I
sold,
certainly
but
didn't think
he-
so, no.
Yeah, Brian he doesn't have a name for the new owner, so I'm gonna look at the grand list and figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know who that would be.
But he said he'd just stop over there someday, and if they were out, he'd stop and introduce himself and talk to him about it. Because that easement would help.
Right.
Otherwise, he's gonna have to find a
More
different way.
complicated,
Yeah,
temporary bridge
yeah,
or something.
Yeah,
You mean the part that was Diana Sidebottoms?
yes.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
I think it's
Yeah.
Bell's.
Really?
Yeah, I know he was clearing it.
But that's on the other side.
I
isn't it? Or did
yeah.
we buy a
Well, that's what
parcel
I'm,
too?
well, maybe someone had him clear it while he was clearing his area too. I don't know, because he had the equipment out.
Yeah. But, yeah, that'll get started soon here. The Energy Committee, we already mentioned. Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing for a zoning ordinance amendment. Basically, it's to allow dwelling multifamily in the rural residential area as a conditional use. It'll be like a case-by-case basis. May 8th, I think that was, Deb, was it May 8th?
10th,
10th.
it was a Thursday.
I don't know why I got May 8th in my head, but May 10th. So, I'll keep you posted on that. 'Cause it might be something where one of the select board members could go to the meeting too. So it's good to see people getting active. I like it. Delegation. That's it for me.
What's the name of it?
It was May 10th.
Yeah.
It's right here, actually. I do have a copy of that one that's there.
It's kind of interesting.
All right, warrants.
Warrants.
All right.
We have a few. I have a revised warrant. It's a payroll warrant from March 30th. The select board had signed a warrant where there was a check that was voided. One of our employees were paid the wrong rate. So we voided that check, but the warrant wasn't, right. So the difference.
So do we have a new signature page, or?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay.
So the difference was $100.25, but I just want to make it clear that's, so
What's happening?
that's that one.
So,
So Deb, it's March 30th,
Yeah.
$7,274.96.
okay,
I always forget.
Yeah,
You
no,
have to
I'll-
move and then I
I'll move
say
to
it.
approve and execute warrants. What is it for this? Just payroll?
Well, there's more than one payroll.
She'll read
warrant,
them off, so
Yeah.
that's fine.
As presented.
As presented.
As presented, there you go,
Yeah.
yeah.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants as presented. There's no further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, let's see.
Go ahead for that one.
Payroll warrant, April 6th, in the amount of $10,530.36. And this includes the library.
We're still paying ship.
He's
Yeah.
per diem and he's
I know.
well worth it. We
So
get,
what is this? This was,
This was for your one-on-one day?
yeah, that one-on-one day when we went over so many things.
and there's a not insignificant check to Anita here too, is that,
Yeah.
that's sort of final check?
That was the final, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I heard she's coming in tomorrow.
Till the guy's in,
Uh,
do something.
If I recall, it was like 48 hours. Yeah, she was just,
Questions, I said, that's a good Anita question, he said she'll be here tomorrow.
she's been very helpful by the way.
I'm sure she
Still,
has,
she
yeah.
is like, payroll warrant, April 13th, for $7,023.26. That's just municipal, highway and office. And I like how you guys catch those, Steve. Very good eye. No, I'm glad you guys ask questions. You know, Anita and Chet and.
I see, I select to meet Kim. Should you go by Kim?
Yes. Yep.
Good guy, and a couple times I've stopped in, she hasn't.
She's doing good, and you know, it's like anything, learning curve and trying to figure things out.
She's a bookkeeper for a few local businesses.
Yes, the general store and I think Kitty's. Accounts payable.
I asked her if she was using QuickBooks. She says, yes. Oh my God, that's what we say. She's, don't you tell anybody.
Yeah.
Accounts payable down 411 to 413. $101,615.62. You will see in here there is a bond payment. If you look on the second page for $42,509.52. That's for the fire station and the water and the sewer bonds. That's the bulk of your, and then Simon's at 18,892. That's 2 months worth of billing.
For Simon's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So January's didn't, somehow, we didn't get it or something, and then she paid merchant, so that's why that's high. But everything else seems to,
What do we use Casella for?
sludge removal.
Oh, from the.
Yeah,
treatment-
treatment plant.
plant.
Not like the good old days where we used to just be able to take it, spread it down in the, well, on the meadows for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, but, well, that, but even dairy sludge or dairy slurry, that's even gonna be changing, isn't it, with
Yeah.
all this new
Yeah,
stuff?
with water control. with
And I
water
see that
quality.
along Sackets Brook a lot,
Really?
in a rainstorm. There you go. But other than that, everything's pretty coming along.
Everything's, yeah.
What's power plant, do you know?
Power plan is Nortrax, it's equipment, it's a credit card. So Brian will use the card and it goes through power plan. Westminster has the same thing, so it's just easier to pay.
PayPal-ish kind of thing,
Well,
just a secondary credit.
yeah, yes, I don't know why, maybe because the amounts can get right up there, I don't know. But in that,
With more tracks, yes.
well, that particular account, power plan, they're deferred payments,
Yeah.
so, but we pay them.
Sort of spreads it out over time.
Yeah, yeah, but we pay them as we get them.
All right. Any other business? I just wanted to say, I have been told that you have a Facebook account that lists you as the Putney Selectboard clerk, and I just want to sort of restate my feeling that that's something you should be very cautious about. And also that if, I don't know whether you have considered this, but if something were to go poorly on that for you, that I'm guessing the town would not stand behind you on it. So just so you're aware of that, and that it's public knowledge that, I haven't checked with council about that, but it's something that is a new territory for us, and if you're using it in that way, I'm guessing that's fine. but that's your choice, and it is not ratified by the town at all, so.
Okay.
Just so that's clear.
I thought that when I first brought that up, that I was clear that I had that.
I didn't know that there was a label that it said Putney Selectboard Clerk on it.
Okay.
You may have said that, I don't know.
I guess I don't remember that, excuse me, either, because I guess our fear was that anything that you said would be taken as representing the board as a whole, and
And okay, so I think that's why I clarified it, but I understand what you're saying. So,
Because it's not a town account, so if you represent it that way in any way, and again, for some reason, any reason, and I don't understand the implications nearly well enough to say, but, if there were any sort of a liability involved in it, that would be your liability.
Even with
Have
a
you seen it?
disclaimer though,
have you looked at it at all?
no.
Okay, has anybody?
I don't have.
I've just seen the label,
Okay.
but I haven't looked at any more.
Okay, all right, because there's not, I suppose anything could be inflammatory,
That's
but,
is what I would be concerned about if it was for me, so,
I do understand your concerns. I am very careful with what goes on there. It's very limited and it's public information. It's only repeating public information.
But if you're repeating it in any way that implies opinion, you need to be clear that it's not our opinion.
And I think that's why I clarified with the clerk on there, and I did put a disclaimer on it that this is not an official Putney Select Board page. This is only the viewpoint of myself.
Yeah, well, my opinion, if I went to Facebook and I saw your name with the title there, I would automatically think it's open for discussion for anything. So maybe just taking that title out of there.
Because it almost seems like as clerk, you're representing.
And with the disclaimer, your name in the disclaimer, then, it would be friendly, it would be.
I have no idea. I just want to reiterate my concern about it, so.
I understand your concern. It's honestly, I was looking at it as another medium for us to communicate.
Which I think is probably great. I just don't know well enough. Just listening to Mark Zuckerberg testifying, I'm not sure anybody knows what the implications are.
Yeah.
And it's something that you might want to ask somebody about if you haven't, because I just don't know whether it opens you up to any sort of a liability. If you say something that's in any way inflammatory or inaccurate or anything else, and it misrepresents the town in any way, I'm not saying that you're doing that, and I'm not saying you would or anything else. I don't know what the implications
May
are,
I
and I
add
would
too
be
that
cautious.
Facebook pages get hacked. And if that particular page was hacked and you didn't notice it for 24 hours, there could be a lot of stuff on there, Laura, that could be damaging. And then we'd have to backpedal and explain, and I don't think we really want to do that.
But this is all,
Right.
What if?
exactly,
Right.
it's all unknown.
Yeah. I also believe a social media policy
is important,
That
absolutely,
is
no
like
question.
priority
Yeah.
number one at this point.
I agree, yeah.
Because the thing, because we couldn't, or I guess neither of us could ever respond
Right.
to anything on there.
Right.
Because of
Or
the
we
paper.
could, but then it becomes.
No.
Yeah,
No,
but
it's-
then-
Then it's illegal,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Which is something that we discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's an issue, I just, to me, I'm too much of a dinosaur to
But
understand it.
it's like someone from school said, oh, you guys have a Facebook page talking about the select board. And I went, well, we don't have a Facebook page. But that's what they thought right away.
Right.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
was
that's
kinda
good
surprised,
feedback,
yeah.
because I thought I had been very clear on that it was not a select board page, that it was mine.
You were very
specifically.
clear on the page in
Yes.
saying that?
Yes.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I mean, I have my own personal page, but that's
Right.
completely
Mhm.
different.
Right, yeah.
You know, I'm happy to take it down until we consult a lawyer and have
No,
a policy,
sort
if
of
that's
no.
what everybody else is more comfortable with. It's not something that I use frequently. I just thought it was a good medium, and I've seen
Right.
other select board members doing it in
And-
other towns.
And I think as a vehicle to get information out, it's, potentially a good idea. Again, it's out of my realm, so. But I've sort of also heard the same thing. Somebody talked to me about it and sort of said, wait, does Laura have, is she, is that a select board thing? I was like, no, this is not, so. And they forwarded me a clip of that page with the title on it, so that's the only thing I've seen.
Okay.
But I
And I haven't
I
seen
just
it,
don't
so I
know.
can't really say other than what someone
Yeah.
said to me at one
Okay.
point, so.
So those other select board members that have Facebook pages, can you ask them if they have a social media policy?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I can.
That might be a question for Muninet too.
Yep.
I don't know whether.
You know, I do think it actually, I'm vaguely recalling that it did come up with one of them when I was developing this one. And I don't believe that they do. This is out of Brattleboro that I'm thinking specifically, but I know that there's others, and I would have to go searching my memory banks. I can't think right now offhand of who.
And of course, some people want to have a vehicle, and I'm not remotely saying this is you, some people want to have a vehicle to stir the pot. And that just might not be a category you want to be in. Maybe you do, I don't know, but.
This came up a lot at the conference that we went to,
Yeah,
social media and how to handle it.
Yeah.
policies and
Yeah,
procedures.
no, so policy, we need to stay on top of
Yes,
that policy. And I intended to actually contact council today, and I just
Yeah.
did for
I know, I
everybody,
get the same way, and
so it
it's,
happened. But, my guess, as I've said clearly in the past, is that what you choose to do is your choice. I don't think we can tell you to do it or not do it, and I'm not interested in doing that, but I think it's something to think pretty hard about. But it may work great, and if more people are finding about things that are going on, that's great too.
right.
Has it come up as an issue? Was anybody upset with it?
No.
being there? Okay.
It was just someone said that, oh, I see I see you got a Facebook page.
Okay.
And I was really surprised.
Okay.
And I said, no. And then they just mentioned that you had, I don't know, posted something or whatever. And I said, well, no, I think that's something that Laura's doing, and it's not the town's or whatever.
Maybe we should visit the town having one. No?
Well,
No, we have a website, and it will be redesigned.
Okay.
We have,
Minutes and agendas are
Yeah.
posted as soon as I get them.
we don't have time to
Instantly.
yeah, that's
manage
the
a
problem.
Facebook page.
No,
And,
and to try and respond and so on.
No.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
and that discourages people from coming into the office. We'd rather have them come here, if there's something going on, come talk to us. It's an open door policy. All the offices are like that, but
I hear you. On the flip side, not everybody's ambulatory, not everybody's able to get in here.
Right.
And it's nice to have a
Right.
connection to them.
Well, I think there are vehicles for that electronically via the website and or email,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
all email access is posted clearly. So it's not like we don't have some electronic or digital
Right.
access. That would be another thing that would have to be managed. And
Correct.
the more
Correct.
we have to manage, the
Yeah.
more personnel we need for all practical purposes, and having one more thing to manage is not,
Yeah.
it's certainly not outside of the realm of possibility that at some point that's something we would want to do, but for now, I think we probably have sufficient ability for, as you point out, those who don't have that opportunity to make contact, but it's not a necessity. Is it something that would be nice to do at some point? certainly possible, but it's certainly not something I would feel
Right.
comfortable asking to add one more thing to the list of what the manager's office has to take care of, so,
Right.
Okay.
for the time being. But,
Yeah, no, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then I'm comfortable taking that down. I have no issue with that. I wasn't trying to step on anyone's toes or
Yeah, no, I just, I think what Steve expressed was also sort of how I, you know, of, is that an official, you know, is she doing that on behalf of the select board kind of thing? And you know, again, that's up to you, that's your choice, but if it in any way is, I don't know what the liabilities involved are, so, don't know.
That'd be a good question for VLCT if
It would
anybody's
be,
ever.
yeah, you could go.
You know.
I did contact them after our initial conversation, and they have a social media policy.
I have a
Yeah.
copy of it.
And it doesn't.
It's not that clear,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
It's a
I'm-
little outdated. They said.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if any, like, legal, anything's come up where they had to, you know, represent anybody because of a social media.
Ramifications of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Any town has experienced that yet or not, you know, or?
I'm not
You know,
sure in
I'm gonna-
Vermont. Maybe outside of Vermont.
Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
amazed if it hasn't come up somewhere,
Yeah.
but I don't,
Yeah.
but I
I
don't know.
don't know much.
I mean, you have to be really careful because, you know,
People construe it as what it
Yeah.
might not be.
perception is everything, and just like this, you know, people are thinking it's a town website, you know, a page, where it's not. But-
So, something we just need to keep doing
Yeah.
all the time, so.
Okay. Well, I will explore with Brattleboro whether or not they have a policy.
Yeah, that would
Get
be
back to
good.
you, and in the
Yeah.
meanwhile,
Yeah.
I'll just disable it so that
Yeah.
it's a non-issue.
That's
for
up
the
to you
town.
again, I mean, that's your choice,
I know,
but-
but I didn't. So when I did it, I thought it was the new norm.
Right.
And
it-
you're telling me
it-
it's not.
Well,
So
it
for
may,
this community,
it
at
may
least.
well be, I have
Yeah.
no idea, it's just not a norm that I deal with.
Right.
And, you know, there may be a way that you can do it. I mean, that question of does the select board have a Facebook page, because people have seen it as being that, to me, that's risky. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong at all. I just don't know what the ramifications are. And, you know, if there are possible legal liabilities or otherwise, as Karen pointed out, if it gets hacked, I mean, of course, you know, the odds of that in Putney, Vermont are slim to probably none, but you never know. There's always somebody
Actually,
out
hacking
there.
is something completely, it would not be limited to our town. It would be
Right.
coming from like Russia.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And
So-
who knows why and what the motivation would be and so on and so forth. I have no
Right.
idea.
Right.
But it was interesting, actually, one of the things that I heard in a review of the discussion about Mark Zuckerberg presenting yesterday, and I feel sort of the same way, you know, the questions that many of the senators were asking were essentially, somebody described it as like your grandparents asking their grandchild how to sign on to their, you know, website, because they just have no idea. And I'm the same way. I have no idea what the reality of it is. So, you know, I don't know.
It's a permanent bullhorn. I mean.
Yes, absolutely, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, that's great. I think it's a very useful tool for certain things. I don't know what the implications are for us, so, but.
So here's a question too, since we're delving into kind of gray areas. You know, I am a pretty strong activist in our community. Has that been an issue for anybody on this board?
It's not an issue for me. I think it's something that, again, I personally would be cautious about it. I think being an activist is a great thing. But, you know, mixing it with select board business is certainly something that would not be appropriate. And I don't think you've been doing that, so that doesn't particularly.
No, I actually try really hard to make sure that I separate that. It's been on my mind a lot lately.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that our role, although we try and engage the community a lot, is not to be activists per se. We're, for very basic practical purposes, we're running a business, and the business is the town. And so, I try as much as possible to not have an agenda per se, as far as, clearly we're trying to sort of do the best we can by the town. But, if one were to take, for example, the gun protest, I think that's great. Personally, I'm in favor of it. I would not do that. I would not represent myself in any way as a select board member doing that, and I don't think you did.
No.
But it's a gray area that, blurring those lines, I just think there's some risks involved, and I don't honestly know what those risks are, but they're probably there. So just something to be aware of. No, and I would certainly not, personally, I wouldn't discourage you from being an activist, but I think it's tricky business to mix up. So how you manage that, I mean, that's something you'll just find out over time, and you may suddenly find yourself in situations where you're going, well, that's not what I thought I was doing, but that's how somebody portrays it. So particularly with media, et cetera, who knows? We just live in times where that stuff gets pretty sticky pretty quickly. But.
Karen, did you have, because I asked the board, but I didn't ask you, did you have any thoughts on that?
I haven't heard anything, so, I think it's great you're an activist, because that is personal. So, and I think when you're in that moment, you're not thinking about anything else, you're thinking about that event, that topic, so, and
I'm definitely not representing myself as a select board member in that moment, but I also realize that,
one thing it was maybe sometime in the first year, because I have some pretty strong opinions on certain things. But we had this meeting, it's actually at the fire station, getting all these opinions that weren't necessarily close to mine. And I suddenly realized in that moment that I was actually elected to represent the town. So if the majority of the people here have an opinion that's totally contrary to mine, I'm supporting them. And so it made it really difficult for me to continue in a certain line of thinking, at least within the organized town. So it's weird.
And,
it is weird.
And it gets quite blurry. I mean, when it comes, some of the more contentious ones that I can remember, affordable housing issues, cell tower issues, the parking lot, I mean, there's stuff that comes up that, you're right, we're representing the voters, and, I try and make it clear when I'm expressing personal opinion that it's personal opinion, but our role here is to try and do what people want us to do, and that's, not always easy, but it's an interesting mix though, because it challenges your, how you think about things, and that's useful many times. I think that, where I would be a little nervous about it, again, using the gun protest as an issue is, if suddenly a reporter starts asking you questions, they're going to be looking for a certain story, or possibly looking for a certain story, and just, if, I guess, just, how you work through that in the moment can be tricky, because you might say something that you think really doesn't have any implications, and all of a sudden they've taken half of that statement and it's in the Brat Reformer, and you're going, well, wait a minute, that's not what I meant, and
not what you meant.
And that happens, no question.
Say,
Yeah.
because words get twisted.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and my experience with that relatively limited, although, I do see my name in the paper more often than I sometimes might hope, but, you're always better off saying, let me think about it and I'll get back to you.
Right.
Than saying an answer that might come back to haunt you, but that may be obvious, but I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's just tricky stuff, and especially again in a time when people are often looking for somebody to pin something on. You don't want to be that person, obviously, but making solid statements about your personal beliefs is important too, so,
Right.
but,
Okay.
yeah, it's,
Well, I'm comfortable taking it down. It was more an exercise in the campaign approach, which didn't really need to even happen in Putney, but and because I had seen Brattleboro had done it and others had done it, and I thought it was a good outreach tool, but
and I certainly think it might be.
Yeah.
And I don't, if it all makes sense, I would encourage you to do outreach, because that's a good thing, but,
there's other mediums.
but, yeah.
Yeah.
And we may find that it's the perfect medium, but,
Right. We just need to clarify the
Yeah.
boundaries.
yeah.
Okay.
That's all.
So,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Thought I'd better say something. All right,
All right, move to adjourn.
Next meeting?
second.
Second it, yes.
All in favor?
All right.
Oh, next
Next
meeting,
meeting.
yeah, next meeting,
25th.
April 25th, yep. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See ya.